What's going on, everybody? It's Warren. Welcome back to the Cosmic Wonder, where we talk all things Marvel and MCU, and of course, the Spider-Verse. Spider-Man No Way Home is one of the biggest movies of all time. And luckily for us, spoiler alert if you haven't seen Spider-Man No Way Home and its post-credit scene, luckily for us, the Spider-Man No Way Home post-credit scene set up another Spider-Man film. And not to mention, Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige and Sony executive producer Amy Pascal, not too long after the theatrical release of No Way Home, came out and said that they are indeed working on another Spider-Man film with Tom Holland. Kevin Feige said he was letting us know, so we didn't have to worry about another Sony Marvel Studios mix-up. So it's confirmed, we're getting another Spider-Man movie in the MCU, and it looks like we are getting a trilogy, actually. And this trilogy has the potential to be way better than the trilogy that we already have with Tom Holland. In fact, Spider-Man 4 in the MCU with Tom Holland, not a Spider-Man 4 with Tobey Maguire, which I will talk about, but Spider-Man 4 with Tom Holland alone could actually be better than Spider-Man No Way Home if even some of these rumors are true. So let's dive into what we already know about these upcoming movies and how they could actually lead up to an amazing trilogy. One that hopefully outdoes the first one. And of course, if you're new, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the latest videos. Now, one of the cool things is that we actually know what Spider-Man 4 is going to be about. Or at least we know a little bit about what the plot is going to entail. Again, thanks to its post-credit scene teasing the Venom symbiote. But what if Spider-Man 4 is more than just a Venom versus Spider-Man film? After all, we have Tom Hardy's Venom, but he is back in the Sony universe. Marvel teased us with the post-credit scene for Venom Let There Be Carnage, Tom Hardy's Venom and Eddie Brock going to the MCU, but then, in the post-credits for No Way Home, they went back. And they left behind a part of the Venom symbiote, which makes it very clear that it's not going to be the same Eddie Brock and Venom from the Sony Spider-Verse, seemingly setting up a Spider-Man vs. Venom with a new Venom. But what if it's not just Venom? What if it's a whole bunch of symbiotes? And what if the other two Spider-Men return and help Tom Holland's Peter Parker fight them? Now, at this point in time, it seems all but confirmed that Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield in some way, shape, or form are going to return again and reprise their roles as their respective Spider-Man. This could be cameos in other movies, such as Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man appearing in Morbius. The big rumor right now is that there's a Spider-Man in one of the post-credit scenes, and it could be Andrew's. Not to mention, Tobey Maguire said that he was really excited to get back in the suit and that he's up for anything. And recently, Sam Raimi, who directed the original Spider-Man trilogy with Tobey Maguire and is now directing Multiverse of Madness, said that he would love to direct another Spider-Man film. Then, not to mention one deleted scene from Spider-Man No Way Home, a very important scene, where Tom Holland's Peter Parker is leaving the other two Spider-Men. He's saying goodbye to them. And there's one version of this scene where Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker says, "You know where to find us," implying that if Peter Parker did need some help again, he would know exactly where to go to find the other two Spider-Men. Now, the scene was deleted and didn't make the final cut for whatever reason. Perhaps they didn't want people like me looking too much into this. But the point is, there is so much happening that does lead us to believe that Tobey and Andrew will eventually return in some way, shape, or form, and perhaps they could return in Spider-Man 4. A big rumor right now is that they are going to return for another Spider-Man movie with Tom Holland, but they're going to be in the movie for the majority of the time and not just one part. Now, right off the bat, that alone would probably beat No Way Home. Let me clarify, I don't think the hype would be as big as Spider-Man No Way Home, but I think once that movie did come out and it was truly a 3 Spider-Man film, it would eventually beat No Way Home. And then if you add some other rumors that are going around about the 3 Spider-Man fighting a symbiote army, that would essentially give you Spider-Man vs. Venom, but times 3. Probably more than that, but it would be really cool if you saw one Spider-Man go up against one Venom, another against another, and then another against another. 3v3, that would be pretty sweet. Now, Null, the symbiote creator and god, was rumored to possibly appear in Thor Love and Thunder, but it appears that some insiders have shut that rumor down. And that could be because Sony wants to use Null themselves, perhaps in the next Spider-Man film. They do need to go bigger with the next Spider-Man film. And how do you go bigger than the 3 Spider-Men showing up? Well, there kind of are 2 options. One one, you can do a Spider-Man vs. Venom, which it seems like they are indeed doing, and two, you could have the three Spider-Man in an entire movie and not just one part. This could make Spider-Man 4 better than Spider-Man No Way Home. And fingers crossed that something like this actually does happen. But I do think that something else in Spider-Man 4 has to happen to make the future of the trilogy amazing, because I do think that even if this is heavily focused on the symbiotes, they do have to set Spider-Man 5 and 6 up for something extremely big to come. And I think one thing they have to introduce in Spider-Man 4 is Kingpin. Now, of course, as most of us know, Kingpin has already been introduced into the MCU in the Hawkeye series. And no, he is not dead. He gets shot in the eyes in the comics, goes blind, but eventually recovers his eyesight. This is going to happen in the MCU, and we believe that he's going to be the big bad villain of the Echo series. And not to mention, it looks like Daredevil is going to be getting his own MCU Disney Plus series as well. And what better villain to bring in than Kingpin? Plus, not to mention, we know that Peter Parker and Matt Murdock now know each other thanks to Spider-Man No Way Home. So this would also set up a team up for Daredevil and Spider-Man, something I know myself and a lot of fans have really been wanting. So I think a Kingpin setup, at least, has to happen in Spider-Man 4. This will lead to Spider-Man 5. Now, Spider-Man 5 can be about Kingpin. He can be the main Spider-Man villain. This could also be where Daredevil actually comes into play in a Spider-Man film, because I do actually think that Spider-Man 6 should be just about our Peter Parker, our Spider-Man. It'll be the finale of the trilogy and maybe even the finale of Tom Holland playing Spider-Man. It should probably just focus on him. So if we are going to see a Daredevil Spider-Man team up, I do believe it should be in Spider-Man 5 against Kingpin. However, I do not believe that they should kill Kingpin in Spider-Man 5. I think it should reappear in Spider-Man 6 with the Sinister Six, with Norman Osborn backing them up. Now, we still have no idea who bought the Avengers Tower in the MCU right now. It could go on to be the Baxter Building for the Fantastic Four. We'll have to wait and see on that, but we do know that there is no Norman Osborn in the MCU that has been revealed, at least. I think this is what Spider-Man 6 should be focused on, especially since we've already met a Norman Osborn / the Green Goblin in the MCU at this point. And as we know, he killed Aunt May, and Peter Parker, even though he saved him, probably still has a lot of aggressive feelings towards him. Now, what's actually really interesting is very recently, Marissa Tomei, who plays Aunt May, said that she would love to return in the MCU, stating that it's the multiverse and pretty much anything is possible now. Imagine if a variant of her somehow returned. That would make things super interesting if Tom Holland's Peter Parker went up against a Green Goblin. Now, of course, we all kind of wanted a Sinister Six, a true Sinister Six for a big finale. We got the Sinister Five, but as the writers and producers of Spider-Man No Way Home stated, they weren't really meant to be the Sinister Six. They were just villains. So Spider-Man 6 should be a Sinister Six movie with Norman Osborn at the helm. You can have Norman Osborn, Kingpin, Kraven the Hunter, because we do have a Kraven the Hunter film coming up. And let's not forget, Vulture, Scorpion, and Chameleon do exist in the MCU. Their characters were kind of introduced and then sidelined by the huge movie that was No Way Home, but they do still exist, and we're going to be seeing Michael Keaton's Vulture in Morbius. At least we think so. We'll have to see what they're doing with the universes here. Maybe he's a variant, who knows. But I am hoping at least Michael Keaton's Vulture would still be in the MCU and would be a part of the Sinister Six. Heck, maybe even a Venom symbiote could be left over, and Venom could be a part of the Sinister Six. And I personally think that if all of this happens, this trilogy could actually be way better than the Homecoming trilogy. The three Spider-Men returning for a full movie, Spider-Man versus Venom in some way, shape, or form, Kingpin, one of the biggest, baddest Spider-Man villains being introduced in the MCU as a main Spider-Man villain, and a true Sinister Six with Norman Osborn. I think this would outdo the Homecoming trilogy, but let me know what you think about this in the comments down below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the latest Marvel videos. For live updates, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.